Hello everyone, this is the part 4 of Fundamental of Physical Geography textbook from class 11. This chapter describes about distribution of oceans and continents. This chapter explores the distribution of oceans and continents on Earth, highlighting their highlighting their relative sizes, shapes, and locations. It discusses the continental drift theory, plate tectonics, and the process of seafloor spreading, which have shaped the Earth's surface over millions of years. The chapter also covers the characteristics of oceans and including their salinity, temperature, and depth, as well as the features of continents, such as mountains, plateaus, and plains. It touches on the importance of oceans and continents in regulating the Earth's climate, supporting life, and influencing human activities. So let's go start. We have studied the interior of the Earth in this earlier chapter. We are already familiar with the world. We know that continents cover 29% of the surface of the Earth and remainder is under oceanic waters. The position of continents and the oceans bodies as we see them in the map have not been the same in the past. Moreover, it is now a well accepted fact that oceans and continents will not continue to enjoy their present position in times to come. If this is so, the questions arises what were their positions in the past? Why and how do they change their positions? Even if it is true that the continents and oceans have changed and are changing their positions, you may wonder as to how scientists know this. How have they determined their earlier positions? You will find the answer of some of these questions and related questions in this chapter. At first, discuss about the continental drift. Observe the shape of the coastline of the Arctic Ocean. If we observe the coastline of the Arctic Ocean, we will be surprised by the symmetry of the coastline on the other side of the oceans. No wonder many scientists thought of the similarity and considered the possibility of the two Americas, Europe and Africa, to be once joined together. From the known records of the history of science, it was Abraham Ortelius, a Dutch map maker, who first proposed such a possibility as early as 1596. Antonio Pellegrini drew a map showing the three continents together. However, it was Alfred Wegener, a German meteorologist, who put forth a comprehensive argument in the form of the continental drift theory in 1912. This was regarding the distribution of the oceans and continents. According to the Wegener, all the continents formed a single continental mast, and mega ocean surrounded the same. This supercontinental was named Pangaea, which meant all earth. The mega-ocean was called Panthalassa, meaning all water. He argued that around 200 million years ago, the supercontinent Pangaea began to split. Pangaea first broke into two large continental masses as Laurasia and Gondwana, forming the northern and southern components, respectively. Subsequently, Laurasia and Gondwana continued to break into various smaller continents that exist today. A variety of evidence was offered in support of the continental drift. Some of these are given below. Evidences in support of the continental drift. These are the evidence, the matching of the continents that is known as jigsaw fit. Uh, the shorelines of the Africa and South America facing each other have a remarkable and unmistakable match. It may be noted that map produced using a computer programming to find the best fit of the Atlantic margin was presented by Bullard in 1964. It proved to be quite perfect. The match was tried in 1000 fathom line instead of the present shoreline, rocks of the same age across the oceans. The radiometric dating methods developed in the recent period have facilitated correlating the rock formation from different continents across the vast oceans. The belt of ancient rocks of 2000 million years from Brazil coast matches with those from Western Africa. The earliest marine deposits along the coastline of South America and Africa are of the Jurassic Age. This suggests that the ocean did not exist prior to the time. Tillit. It is the sedimentary rock formed out of the deposit of glaciers. The Gondwana system of sediments from India is known as to have its counterpart in six different landmasses of the southern hemisphere. At the base, the system has thick tillate indicating extensive and prolonged glaciations. Counterparts of these successions are found in Africa, Falkland Island, Madagascar, Antarctica, and Australia. Overall, resemblance of the Gondwana-type sediments clearly demonstrates that these landmasses had remarkably similar histories. The glacial tillate provides unambiguous evidence of paleoclimatic and also of drifting of continents. Placer deposits. The occurrence of rich placer deposits of gold in the Ghana coast and the absolute absence of source rock in the region is an amazing fact. The gold-bearing veins are in Brazil, and it is obvious that the gold deposits in the Ghana are derived from Brazil plateau when the two continents lay side by side. Distribution of fossils. When identical species of plants and animals adapted to living on the land or in fresh water are found on either side of the marine barriers, a problem arises regarding the accounting for such distribution. The observation that lemurs occur in India, Madagascar, and Africa led some to consider a contiguous landmass, Lemuria, linking these three landmasses. Mesosaurus was a small reptile adapted to shallow brackish water. The skeletons of these are found only in two localities, the Southern Cape provinces of South Africa and Iravar Formation of Brazil. The two localities are presently 4,800 kilometers apart with an ocean in between them. Force for drifting. Wagner suggested that the movement responsible for the drifting of the continents was caused by pole fleeing force and tidal force. The polar fleeing force relates to the rotation of the Earth. We are aware of the fact that the Earth is not a perfect shape sphere. It has a bulge at the equator. This bulge is due to the rotation of the Earth. The second force that was suggested by Wagner, that is tidal force, that is due to the attraction of the moon and the sun that develops tides in oceanic waters. Wagners believed that these forces would become effective when applied over many million years. However, most of the scholars consider these forces to be totally inadequate. Post-drift studies. It is interesting to note that for continental drift, most of the evidence was collected from the continental areas in the form of distribution of flora and fauna or deposits like tillet. A number of discoveries during the post-World War II period added new information to the geological literature. particularly the information collected from the ocean floor. Mapping provided new dimensions for the study of distribution of oceans and continents. Conventional current theory. Arthur Holmes in 1930s discussed the possibility of convection currents operating in the mantle portion. These currents are generated due to the radioactive elements causing thermal differences in the mantle portion. Holmes argued that there exists a system of such current in the entire mantle portion. This was an attempt to provide an explanation to the issue of force, on the basis of which contemporary scientists discarded the continental drift theory. Mapping of the ocean floor. Detailed research of the ocean configuration revealed that the ocean floor is not just a vast plain, but it is full of relief. Expeditions to the map of the oceanic floor in the post-World War II period provided detailed pictures of the ocean relief and indicated the existence of the submerged mountain ranges as well as deep trenches, mostly located closer to the continent margins. The mid-oceanic ridges were found to be the most active in terms of volcanic eruptions. The dating of the rocks from the oceanic crust reveal the fact that they are much younger than the continental areas. Rocks on the either side of the crest of oceanic ridges and having equidistant locations from the crest were found to have remarkable similarities both in terms of their constituents and their age. Ocean floor configuration. In this section, we shall note a few things related to the ocean floor configuration that help us in the understanding of the distribution of the continent and oceans. We will be studying the details of ocean floor relief in the chapter 13. The ocean floor may be segmented into the three major divisions based on the depth as well as the forms of relief. These divisions are continental margins, deep sea basins, and the mid-ocean ridges. Continental margins. This forms the transition between the continental shores and deep sea basins. They include continental shelves, continental slope, continental rise, and deep oceanic trenches. Of these, the deep oceanic trenches are the areas which are considerable interest in so far as the distribution of oceans and continents is concerned. Abyssal plains. These are extensive plains that lie between the continental margins and mid-oceanic ridges. The abyssal plains are the areas where the continental sediments that move beyond the margins get deposited. Mid-oceanic ridges. This forms an interconnected chain of mountain system within the oceans. It is the longest mountain chain on the surface of the earth, though submerged under the oceanic waters. It is characterized by the central rift system at the crest, a fractional plateau, and the flank zone all along its length. The rift system at the crest is the zone of the intense volcanic activity. In the previous chapter, we have been introduced to this type of volcanoes as mid-oceanic volcanoes. Distributions of earthquakes and volcanoes. Study the maps showing the distributions of the seismic activity on volcanoes given in figure 4.2. This is the distribution of earthquake and volcanoes. If we looked the deep earthquake zones, that shadow zone is known as deep earthquake zone. This is the deep earthquake zone. This is the deep earthquake zone. This is the deep earthquake zone. Okay, uh, and this shadow is shadow earthquake centers. That's the shadow earthquake centers. This this point. Okay, and volcanic eruptions. That is the volcanic eruptions. That point denotes the volcanic eruptions. And hotspot. The big points. That's hotspots. This the hotspot. This the hotspot. This the hotspot. That's hotspot. Okay, so we will notice a line of dots in the central parts of the Atlantic Ocean almost parallel to the coastline. It's Atlantic Ocean almost parallel to the coastline. It further extends into the Indian Ocean. It bifurcates a little south of the Indian subcontinent with one branch moving into the East Africa and the other meeting a similar line from Myanmar to New Guyana. We will notice that this line of dots coincides with the mid-oceanic ridges. The shaded belt showing the another area of concentrations coincides with the alpine Himalayan system and the rim of the Pacific Ocean. In general, the foci of the earthquake in the areas of mid-oceanic ridges are at shallow depth, whereas along the alpine Himalayas belt as well as the rim of the Pacific, the earthquakes are deep-seated ones. The map of volcanoes also shows a similar patterns. The rim of the Pacific is also called rim of the fire due to the existence of active volcanoes in this area. Concept of seafloor spreading. As mentioned above, the post-drift studies provided considerable information that was not available at the time of Wagner put forth as concept of continental drift. Particularly, the mapping of the ocean floor and the paleomagnetic studies of rocks from oceanic ridges reveal the following facts. Number one, it was reveals that all along the mid-oceanic ridges, volcanic eruptions are common and they bring huge amount of lava to the surface in this sea in this area. Second, the rocks equidistant on either side of the crest of mid-oceanic ridges show remarkable similarities in terms of period of formation, chemical composition, and magnetic properties. Rock closer to the mid-oceanic ridges have normal polarity uh, and are the youngest. The age of the rocks increases as one moves away from the crest. The ocean crust rocks are much younger than the continental rocks. The age of rocks in the oceanic crust is now more than 200 million years old. Some of the continental rock formations are as old as 3,200 million years. Number four, the sediments on the ocean floor are unexpectedly very thin. Scientists were expecting, if this ocean floor were as old as the continent, to have a complete sequence of sediments for a period of much longer duration. However, nowhere was the sediments column found to be older than 200 million years. Number five, the deep transidences have deep-seated earthquake occurrences while in the middle oceanic ridge areas, the quake foci have shallow depths. This fact and a detailed analysis of magnetic properties of the rocks on either side of the mid-oceanic ridges led Hayes in 1961 to propose his hypothesis known as the seafloor spreading. Hayes argued that the constant eruptions of the at the crest and of oceanic ridges cause the rupture of the oceanic crust and the new lava wedges on into it, pushing the oceanic crust on either side. The ocean floor thus spreads the younger edge of the oceanic crust as well as the fact that the spreading of one ocean does not cause the shrinking of the other made Hayes think about the consumptions of the oceanic crust. He further maintained that the ocean floor that gets pushed due to the volcanic eruptions at the crest sink down at the oceanic trenches and gets consumed. The basic concept of seafloor spreading has been depicted in figure 4.3. There's the seafloor spreading figure. It shows the theory of this concept. It shows the concept of seafloor spreading. Plate tectonics. Since the advent of the concept of the seafloor spreading, the interest in the problem of distribution of oceans and continents was revived. It was in 1967 McKinsey and Parker and also Morgan independently collected the available ideas and came out with the another concept termed as plate tectonic. A plate tectonic plate, also called the lithospheric plate, is a massive irregularly shaped slab of solid rock, generally composed of both continental and oceanic lithosphere. Plates move horizontally over the asthenosphere as rigid units. The lithosphere include the crust and top mantle with its thickness range varying between 5 to 100 km in the oceanic parts and about 200 km in the continental areas. A plate may be referred to as the continental plate or oceanic plate depending on which of the two occupy a larger portion of the plate. Pacific plate is largely an oceanic plate, whereas the Eurasian plate may be called a continental plate. The theory of plate tectonics proposes that the Earth's lithosphere is divided into seven major and some minor plates. Youngfold mountains, ridges, trenches, and or faults surround these major plates. Major and minor plates of this world. This symbol shows the divergence boundary. This is the divergence boundary. Okay. Content convergence boundary. This is the convergent boundary. We know also divergent and convergent boundary. What is this? Uh, Transform boundary. The straight line is here shows the transform boundary. Straight line. Okay. And the major and minor plates are shown in this figure. That the specific plate is the major plate. And there's the Antarctic plate is the major plate. Okay. South American plate is the major plate, North American plate major plate, Eurasian plate major plate, and then African plate is the major plate, Indo Australian plate is the major plate, and Asian Nazca plate is the minor plate, Juan de Fuego plate is the minor plate, Philippines plate is the minor plate. So this figure shows the major and minor plates of the world. Okay. The major plates are as follows. Antarctic and the surrounding oceanic plates is the major plates. North America with Western Atlantic floor separated from the South America plate along the Caribbean island plate. South American plate, Pacific plate, India, Australian, New Zealand plate, Africa with Eastern Atlantic floor plate, Eurasia and the adjacent oceanic plate. Some important minor plates, Cocos plate between Central America and Pacific plate, Nazca Plate between the South America and Pacific Plate, Arabian Plate, mostly the South Saudi Arabian landmass, Philippines Plate between the Asiatic and Pacific Plate, then Caroline Plate and between the Philippines and Indian Plate. These plates have been constantly moving over the globe throughout the history of the Earth. It is not the continent that moves as believed by Wagner. Continents are part of a plate, and what moves is the plate. Moreover, it may be noted that all the plates without expectation have moved in the geological past and shall continue to move in the future as well. Wagner had thought of all the continents to have initially existed as a supercontinent in the form of the Pangea. However, later discoveries reveal that the continental masses resting on the plates have been wandering all through the geological period. And Pangea was a result of converging of different continental masses that were parts of one or the other plates. Scientists using the paleomagnetic data have determined the positions held by each of the present continental landmass in the different geological periods. Positions of the Indian subcontinents, mostly peninsular India, is traced with the help of the rocks analyzed from the Nagpur area. There are three types of plate boundaries, that is divergent boundaries, convergent boundaries, and transform boundaries. Divergent boundaries where new crust is generated as the plates pull away from each other. The sites where the plates move away from each other are called spreading sites. The best known example of divergent boundaries is the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. At this, the American plate are separated from the Eurasian and African plate. Convergent boundaries, where the crust is destroyed as one plate divide under another. The location where sinking of the plate occurs is called subduction zone. There are three ways in which convergence can occur. These are between an oceanic and continental plate, between two oceanic plates, and the between two continental plates. Transform boundaries, where the crust is neither produced nor destroyed as the plates side horizontally past each other. Transform faults are the planes, the separations generally perpendicular to the mid-oceanic ridges. As the eruptions do not take all along the entire crest at the same time, there is differential between a portion of the plate away from the axis of the earth. Also, the rotation of the earth has its effect on the separated blocks of the plate boundaries. Rates of plate movement. The strips of normal and reverse magnetic field that parallel the mid-oceanic ridges help scientists determine the rates of plate movements. These rates vary considerably. The Arctic ridges has slowed rate less than 2.5 centimeter per year, and the East Pacific rise near Easter Island. In the South Pacific, about 3,400 kilometers of Chile has the fastest rate, more than 15 centimeter per year. Force for the plate movement. At the time that Wagner proposed the theory of continental drift, most scientists believed that the Earth was a solid, motionless body. However, concepts of seafloor spreading and the united theory of the plate tectonics have emphasized that both the surface of the Earth and the interior are not static and motionless, but are dynamic. The fact that the plates move is now a well accepted fact. The mobile rock beneath the rigid plates is believed to be moving in a circular manner. The heated material rises to the surface, spreads, and begins to cool, and then sinks back into the deeper depths. This cycle is repeated over and over to generate what scientists call a convection cell or convective flow. Heat within the Earth comes from two main sources: radioactive decay and the residual heat. Arthur Holmes first considered the idea in 1930s, which later influenced Harry Hayes' thinking about seafloor spreading. The slow movement of hot, softened mantle that lies below the rigid plates is the driving force behind the plate movements. Movement of the Indian plate. The Indian plates includes peninsular India and the Australian continental portion. The subduction zones along the Himalayan forms the northern plate boundary in the form of the continent. Continent convergence. Continent convergence. In the east, it extends through Rakioma Mountains of the Myanmar towards the island or along the Java Trench. The eastern margin is a spreading site lying to the east of Australia in the form of an oceanic ridge in southwest Pacific. The western margin follows Kirthar mountain of Pakistan. It further extends along the Makrana coast and joins the spreading site from the Red Sea, rift southeastward along the Chagos archipelago. The boundary between the India and the Antarctic plate is also marked by oceanic ridge, that is divergence boundary, running in roughly west to east direction and merging into the spreading site a little south of New Zealand. India was a large island situated off the Australian coast in a vast ocean. The Tethys Sea separated it from the Asian continent till about 225 million years ago. India is supposed to have started her northward journey about 200 million years ago at the time of when Pangaea broke. This shows the movement of the Indian plate. This is the early India, and it is the 71 million years ago, 55 million years ago, and then uh, 38 million years ago, then 10 million years ago, and India today now. There is the Eurasian plate. So India collided with Asia about 40 to 50 million years ago, causing rapid uplift of the Himalayas. The position of India since about 71 million years till the present are shown in the figure 4.1, shows in this figure. It also shows the position of the Indian subcontinent and the Eurasian plate. About 140 million years before the present, the subcontinent was located as south as 50 degrees south latitude. The two major plates were separated by the Tethys Sea, and the Tibetan bloc was closer to the Asiatic landmass. During the movement of the Indian plate towards the Eurasian plate, a major event that occurred was the outpouring of lava and formation of the Deccan Traps. This started somewhere around 60 million years ago and continued for a long period of time. The subcontinent was still close to the equator from 40 million years ago, and therefore the event of formation of the Himalayas took place. Scientists believe that the process of still continuing and the height of the Himalayas is rising even to this date.